Hello and welcome again to our event. Please take a moment to read what's on your screen in front of you. Note that this event today is property of the Middle States Commission on Higher Education. If you have any questions, you can reach out to us at president@msche.org. So we'll go ahead and move to the next slide. And welcome to our event today, Igniting and Inspiring Institutional Innovation, Workforce Development, and Project-Based Mentorship. I'm pleased to introduce myself. My name is Nicole Beaver, and I'm Chief of Staff for the Middle States Commission on Higher Education. Today, I have with me a great team of innovators who are doing work around workforce development. And so I'm going to turn it over to them to introduce themselves, starting off with Patty.
Hey, everybody. I'm excited to be here. My name's Patty Alper. I have a diverse background. Just to give you a little bit of it, I was a construction entrepreneur, one of the first women in the field of commercial construction. I hosted and produced a radio show, another kind of entrepreneurial venture. And now I am the president of the Teach to Work Foundation, where I support educators and the entrepreneurship world of NIFTY. I'm a huge fan, and I'm excited to be here today. Thanks.
Hi, I'm JD LaRock. I'm the president and CEO of the Network for Teaching Entrepreneurship, also known as NIFTY, and we'll be talking a little bit about what we do and how it connects to project-based mentorship in just a moment. In addition to this work leading NIFTY for the past 6 years, I'm also very proud to have a nice history in the higher education community as a member of the senior leadership team at Northeastern University, a former member of the Massachusetts Board of Higher Education, and former chair of the board of a community college in Massachusetts. Great to be with you all today.
Hello, everyone. My name is Kenny Turner. I am the Associate Director at the Center for Social and Technology Entrepreneurship at Cal State Northridge, also known as the CSU system here in California. It's about 23 colleges in this system, service about almost 500,000 students. At Cal State Northridge, we service almost 40,000 students. But prior to this opportunity at Cal State Northridge, I was a staff member at NIFTY working in entrepreneurship education, both on the high school and post-secondary fronts, embedding entrepreneurship in school systems, et cetera. So really happy to be here today to have this conversation.
Thank you all for being here today. I know we're all very excited to hear more about the work that each of you is doing. To begin, though, I'm going to have us turn to the next slide and we will talk a little bit about our commission and the work that our institutions are doing related to workforce development. So we know that workforce development is not something new, and our institutions have been doing work in this areas for a very long time. The Middle States Commission on Higher Education supports institutions in advancing a wide range of practices related to workforce development, and they're all grounded in their institutional missions and aligned with the Commission's standards for accreditation and requirements for affiliation. The concept of workforce development is embedded throughout our standards through our expectations around student success, program quality, learning outcomes, and institutional improvement. And the evidence expectations by standard provides examples of the evidences institutions can use to illustrate these practices. We recognize the variety of institutional missions across our membership, and we encourage colleges and universities to serve their communities in ways that best reflect local workforce needs, continuing education, and lifelong learning. So you might be wondering how the Commission addresses workforce development. Well, our accreditation applies to an institution as a whole rather than by specific programs within an institution. The Commission does not approve or credit individual credit or non-credit programs. However, we do hold institutions responsible for all courses and programs offered in their name. That means we expect our member institutions will apply our standards equally to all credit and non-credit programs. Each institution is regularly and consistently evaluated and monitored in accordance with our Commission policies and procedures. Our standards have no new or duplicative reporting with them. Institutions are not required to engage in accreditation processes for workforce or continuing education programs alone. There's no separate review process. We do not have an additional or separate accreditation process for non-credit, certificate, or workforce initiatives. We understand that some accreditors might be building approval processes for these programs, but we do not have plans to do so, and our institutions are accredited holistically. We have anything that's offered under the institution's name would already be subject to the commission's existing evaluation and monitoring processes. So another way to put it is that our current standards already encompass this work through the lens of institutional mission, educational effectiveness, and planning for continuous improvement. So many of our institutions have, as I've already mentioned, are doing great work in the area of workforce development. And I just wanted to highlight a few examples of the kind of work that our institutions are doing that demonstrate innovation and impact workforce development throughout these various initiatives. So one example would be Allegheny College of Maryland. They established the Western Maryland Works Training Center and Makerspace in collaboration with local government and regional partners, providing training in machining, metalworking, and advancing manufacturing for high school students, adult learners, and career changers. In East Stroudsburg University in Pennsylvania, the Career and Independent Living and Learning Studies, otherwise known as CILS program, equips young adults with intellectual and developmental disabilities to live independently and participate productively in their communities. Alvernia University in Pennsylvania uses their apprenticeship to degree program to integrate paid industry experiences with degree pathways, building long-term employer relationships and supporting student persistence. At Carlow University, through the Pennsylvania Early Childhood Educator Apprenticeship Program, this is a statewide registered apprenticeship addressing workforce shortages in early childhood education with equity and access at its core. And then in Wilmington University in Delaware, they have the Recognizing Credit for Prior Learning, where they document the work and training experiences that meet academic competencies and enable working adults to accelerate their degree completion. So as you can see, we have a wide variety of institutions doing great innovative work in this area related to workforce development. Looking ahead, our commission is anticipating updates related to Workforce Pell. Beginning in July 2026, Workforce Pell will make short-term programs Pell eligible. We do know that the programs will need to be accredited by a recognized accreditor, but this does not require accreditor approval of individual programs. We also know that states will be looking at these programs. In addition, the goal is to increase access to short-term and high-quality credentials that are stackable and lead to employment. Our commission will continue to share additional information about Workforce Pell as it becomes available and as we receive guidance from the federal government. So with all those things in mind, I'm going to go ahead and turn to my colleague JD to tell us a little bit more about the work that you're doing with NIFTY.
Thanks, Nicole, and really appreciate you starting off by listing all those institutional examples of innovation in the workforce preparation space. That's a fantastic segue to our presentation here today, because institutional colleagues, what we'd really like to get across to you as a first point is that all of us, of course, are always looking to do more in our institutions to support our students to live out the reasons why they came to our institutions in the first place, to get a good education, to find a great job and career, and to set them on the path to a fulfilling life. At whatever age or stage they come to our institutions, and of course, as you all know, they come in many different ages and stages. One thing that I reflect on, having worked at a private institution, four-year research institution, chairing the board of a community college, and then thinking about our issues from a policy role at the State Board of Higher Education, is that this work of creating new opportunities for our students to go deeper and find both achievement and fulfillment never ends. And so this is what this webinar is about, offering you through the idea of enhancing project-based mentoring and entrepreneurship, new pathways for your institutions to do even more for your learners. So let me start out by telling you a little bit about our organization, NIFTY, and how you can look upon us. NIFTY is not a vendor and we're not a for-profit company. We are a social purpose nonprofit organization. We work in civil society primarily through education partners in both the higher education and the K-12 space to basically help young people develop entrepreneurial mindset skills and in many cases learn how to start a business. We are about 40 years old as an organization. We were founded by a K-12 school teacher in the Bronx, New York, and all of us are very proud to continue a legacy of working with now millions of students in higher education and K-12 over time. Next slide. So, as I said, our mission is to use entrepreneurship as a lens to build a mindset that we believe can help students at secondary and post-secondary education go deeper in terms of understanding who they are, what their passions are, and how they connect their skills and talents to either building and launching a business or becoming fantastic employees in the career of their choice. We work around the world as of 2025. We work primarily in the US, and we, over the years, have worked with a few dozen post-secondary institutions to implement various kinds of our programs. Next slide. Here you can get a little taste of our scale and scope. We serve about 73,000 learners globally each year. Many are post-secondary learners, and we have a variety of programs that, in addition to the project-based mentoring that we'll be speaking about specifically today, also may be of interest to your institutions. These include programs that prepare students for entrepreneurship certifications, such as ESB Prep and Start It Up, also post-secondary out of school time and summertime options that allow learners to build entrepreneurial mindsets and learn how to build a business, and also do so at times through project-based mentoring. We are primarily supported as a philanthropy or through philanthropic means. Most of our funding comes from donations from corporate partners and institutional philanthropy that helps us power the programs that we then work with colleges and universities, as well as high schools and middle schools, to offer. Next slide. And here's a little bit more of the cycle of learning that many of our programs engaged in. They are project-based. They always involve a strong mentorship component. Oftentimes, these are provided from corporate volunteers through companies through which we have relationships. These could be companies such as EY, PayPal, Intuit, Santander, many financial services firms, many professional firms that would be attractive corporate entities for your students. We engage them in the implementation of our programs, including the programs that we're here to talk about today. We also include competitions and assessments that can be built with you as add-ons to a student experience, in addition to the mentorship component that we'll be focusing on today. The point that I'd like to get across is that we offer curricular assessment, technical assistance, mentorship, volunteer support, and we can mix and match with your institution's needs to build a customized program that is responsive to what your institution needs. And when Kenny gets to his part, he'll tell you all about that, because when he was working with us, he was a key interlocutor in building those programs in a highly individuated, highly relevant to the institution type of way, which we know is always important. Next slide. Well, you can see how we think about the importance of volunteering and mentorship. We have thousands of volunteer mentors who we work with. And this is part of what we're here to open up to all of you who are attending the webinar here today. And as you can see, there are different roles that these mentors can play. Sometimes they function in classroom situations as supports to the development of a specific component of a business plan or a business idea. Sometimes they're there just to share professional expertise from their sector. They speak about their experiences as a representative of a certain identity group in a particular field and builds bridges between that the students in a classroom and that person's own experience as an individual in a particular sector. Many different ways the mentorship and support can play out, and we're here to work with you to really find the right ways for your institution. Next slide. And we're happy to say that it works. There are many different ways to measure success, but one of the key things that we do is to measure, since we are an entrepreneurship and entrepreneurial skills program, measure things like business startup rates among the people who have participated in our programs and income levels among people who have participated in our programs. Beyond what's on this slide, I'd like to share with you, because it's a point of particular pride, over our 40-year history, we have really focused on working with students who come from lower than average median family incomes. And our longitudinal research consistently shows that 5 to 10 years after participating with in a high fidelity program that we work with institutions to offer, we're often able to take students who come from below average family incomes and enable them, help enable them to propel them to above average family incomes. Of course, the purposes of higher education are even deeper than that, but we know that's an important one too. And to the extent that a partnership with your institution could help propel that type of economic success that your students and families are looking for, we'd love to support you in that work, because our results show that we have some ways to assist with that. Next slide. And finally, just to recap and give a few more examples of what we have done lately in the post-secondary space. As I said, it takes many, many different forms and formats. My colleagues will go into some of the details in just a moment. But you can see here how we're not just working with post-secondary institutions, but workforce authorities and chambers of commerce. And this is both an enhancement to the educational approach that we take, but extends further the network of mentors and volunteers that we can bring to a partnership that we might be able to develop with you. So with that said, I appreciate the opportunity to give this overview, and I will turn it on over to Patty.
Hi, everybody. So first I have to say, I'm excited to be here. Thank you, Nicole, for hosting us. I have been with NIFTY as a volunteer and a contributor since, you ready for this, 1998. I wanted to step up and go into the classroom and actually see how NIFTY teaches students. So I requested to become a volunteer mentor. And at the time, this is a long time ago, there weren't as many mentors as there are today. And I basically was blown away by what I saw. And I wanted to ignite the volunteer effort. And I also was curious what I could bring to the table as an entrepreneur, as one of the first women in a field of mostly male-dominated people in construction. What could I bring to the table as a mentor? So I'm coming to you not as an educator, but as a business person who walked into the classroom. And I was so moved by that experience. I swear I have been a mentor for 20 years with NIFTY. I'm now co-chairing the board, the national board, and not meaning for this to be an advertisement, but I wrote a book about it. I don't know if you can see this. It's called, no, you can't see it. It's called Teach to Work: How a Mentor, a Mentee, and a Project Can Close the Skills Gap in America. So you can go to the next slide. the first thing that I was intending to do was to define the meaning of mentorship. We all know what mentoring can be, but Nifty taught me that really putting a project, that business plan at the center of the relationship, opened the door to many, many more kinds of mentors who are practitioners. A simple business plan is a wonderful way to bring in any kind of field from business, from finance to business management to marketing. There's room for many kinds of volunteers. And I helped to build a program for Nifty way back when called Adopt a Class. And it grew to be in 12 states. It grew up region by region. And I myself invited many, many corporate people to come to the classroom. And it worked. I saw it work from every level, from the student to the teacher, because we were not interrupting their classroom, to the mentors that I brought in that just loved the experience. They came back year after year. So what I want to go through today for you is, what is the new definition for mentoring that we have come up with? How does the program work? And how does it benefit each constituent? Next slide. So here we go. I want to read this a little bit to you. I'm sure you've all heard of project-based learning, but this happens to add a practitioner, a business person as a mentor. Most often they are two differing generations, potentially culturally diverse people who are working together to tackle a realistic problem with a real world application. But while the mentor has vast experience in projects and content, the student, this is very important, it's clear expectations for each role. The student is the idea generator, the responsible party to drive the activity and its implementation. The mentor is there to help plan the project, to play devil's advocate, to give it a framework, and to help prepare the student to defend their business plan orally. What I have found over time is that this relationship very much mimics workplace assignments and collaborations. Next slide. So very simply, and this is not Nifty, this is me just defining a project. I do have to share with you that I am running a foundation. I also contribute to some schools to help them build mentor programs outside of Nifty. And then I'm also working hand in hand with Nifty. So this is just a basic project outline, which you all are familiar with, that can hold true in sciences or in arts or in technology. What's the hypothesis? What's the objective? Who's the audience that you're serving? What is your plan, your implementation? What obstacles do you encounter? And what are your results? Next slide. These are just some examples. We're focusing today on entrepreneurship. There's just a complete logic train that brings entrepreneurship into play with mentorship. It fits. But these are just, you can refer to this later, some other subject matters that could also have projects and mentors align. Next slide. So what is the role of a project-based mentor? First, they help ideate. They play the devil's advocate in asking the mentee, why did you come up with that? Where did you come up with that? And pushing against the student's ideation. It's an easy commitment for mentors because it falls in their wheelhouse. They see the progress of the student and it makes them feel valued. I know this from hundreds of letters from not only mentors, but from mentees. I have, right here in my office, I have about 2,500 letters from both. So The main goal, the intersection between the mentor and the mentee, is to help build a plan. The idea of mapping out what you're going to do with a deadline that is driven by the teacher and a grade. So there is a timeline. There is also presentation coaching to a succinct, I think NIFTY's is an 8-minute oral presentation. So how do you narrow down and be succinct with what you're going to deliver to a group of peers and a group of judges? Also, project mentors can be a sponsor for a field trip for your class to come to their place of work. And they can invite other industry experts as guest speakers to your classroom. Next slide. So this is a slide from me to educators. I believe mentors offer something different, bring something different to the table than educators do. And that is because we're a new voice. We are not talking to a student every single day. I'm going to start with the idea of no authority. We are not grading. We are not paying. We have no lever of punishment. We are only there out of the bigness of our heart and because we want to share knowledge. So what our goal is ultimately to create a safe space, and we have nothing to gain for it. But the student is learning from someone who has done it. They're out there in the field day to day, working in the real world. It is a focus one-to-one. I think it's interesting to have different generations come together and play devil's advocate and learn to disagree. We bring tons of practical experience to the equation. As I said, we have no authority. I think the students look to us mentors as role models. Sometimes we give them methodologies on how to do something, how to get something done, but it's only solicited by the student. And this is all part of the Teach to Work training and the book. Next slide. So within a school, what are the project-based mentoring roles? I'm going to start at the bottom. To me, it's very, very important that there is one human being at a school that is what I would call the project-based mentor coordinator. And their role is to recruit mentors, place the mentors by industry and by project, and potentially coordinate with faculty to assign which mentee to which mentor. The only role for the faculty is really to assign a project and attribute a grade for the project and to determine a time for oral presentations. So in the NIFTY class, let's say, every student has to write a business plan. That's a built-in project. And the teacher has to determine that there's going to be a business plan competition on a said date. Essentially, the mentors work with students outside the classroom, and they meet either in person or virtually. So I'm just giving you some framework of how the program comes together. Next slide. I'm going to come back to the relevant research, maybe with your questions, and there are links to it at the end of the talk. Next slide. So how is project-based mentoring a benefit? To whom and why? Let's go through each constituent. Next slide. How is it a win for the student? I have seen this time and again with NIFTY, and I have to tell you, I've come in September when their head is on the desk and they're not paying attention. And by the end of the semester, they're standing up before a crowd and they're delivering a business model that sometimes they've even launched, and they have pride. I mean, it's remarkable. So that they are learning critical thinking, how they're determining a need that needs to be met, and how they've come up with it. I've written copious stories about it in my book. It's very moving. They have to plan and forecast in real time actionable events, which sometimes I think is unusual at school. You don't often learn to plan and forecast like that, maybe to write a paper. They're designing actionable steps. They're learning to collaborate. They're understanding the meaning of grit, because every project goes awry. So they learn how to stick with it, especially with a mentor by their side. These two are very important to me. I believe that students with a mentor by their side learn to overcome risk. They take bigger challenges because there's someone with them, especially marginalized students who may not have the same kind of backing at home. And they're taking on a leadership role. They are the lead of the project. And that is very clear in the Teach to Work training and the expectations and roles of the mentor, who is subordinated to the mentee. The mentee is the leader of the project. I would venture to say that there are improved outcomes for that student because they've had not only the guidance, but the support of the mentor by their side. They are learning to be rehearsed and have a succinct presentation. I could probably use some of that myself. We'll go on to the next slide. How is it a win for the school? I mean, you all will need to assess this for yourself, but certainly it is a wonderful runway to build new engagements with your business community and your town. It's deepening ties to potential mentors and grant partners. It's broadening the horizons of both your students and your professors to certain industries. I would say it is better preparing students for the workforce. They're learning all kinds of business skills and language. They're expanding their industry knowledge. They have more marketing materials. You, as a school, have more marketing materials in this way. If you were a student coming to a school, wouldn't you rather go to a school that has a relationship with 10 companies that you could potentially work at? And there's greater access to internships and jobs. Next slide. I'm not going to go into this in depth, but in my book, I interview five leading corporations, from 3M to Comcast to EY to MasterCard to Pfizer. And all of them have robust mentoring programs. I'd like to set up a you can do it to schools, that companies are willing and able. They want to do this to build an employee pipeline, if for no other reason. Next slide. So with NIFTY and the project-based mentoring, there is available a host of materials, and you can refer to this later and we can answer questions about it. And that's it for me. We can close here. I think I'm up on my time. Thanks.
Great, we'll go ahead and turn to Kenny then.
All right. Well, thank you. Thank you, Nicole, Patty, JD, and really grateful to be here. Hello to everyone again. Again, Kenny Turner with California State University Northridge, and particularly the Center for Social and Tech Entrepreneurship. We are housed in the Nazarian College School of Business, and on Cal State Northridge, there's 9 colleges here. And on the next slide, please, you can kind of see one of our focus at the center, along with working with current students, alumni, and community entrepreneurs. We hit all three buckets there. Now, undergrad as well as grad, we really position ourselves as almost like a third party, on campus, navigating through education, but also this bridge between industry and practitioners in the real world and bringing them on campus, or creating some environment for our students, alumni and local entrepreneurs to experience this real world engagement. So it's a privilege to be in the middle of that road, and that's exactly what we did at Nifty as well, just kind of bridging ourselves for these resources and these worlds to come together. And what's interesting is there's this dual learning that happens. So oftentimes with volunteers that come, it's not only the students, the alumni, and the local entrepreneurs learning. The volunteers are also getting a lot out of it. They're engaging and learning real world on the ground in a different way. And so it's wonderful to have the dual learning happen. It's such an amazing experience. And so bringing that to a college campus has been very strategic for us. In the past, once again, at our college, in the School of Business, we serve about 7,000 students. On the campus itself, almost 40,000. But that takes tremendous navigation when bringing a practitioner or a real world business person or someone from industry onto campus to engage. And it can happen on campus, it can happen online through virtual experiences as well. But very purposeful and meaningful to create an opportunity for students to be exposed to what's out there, as you guys know. And so we list interdisciplinary because we actually don't just serve the School of Business. We have 9 schools here. So, if you're a film major, if your major is in sustainability, if your major is in teaching, you can still be a part of the entrepreneurial ecosystem. And our engagement with the real world actually helps us to do that. And one more thing here, we do focus on venture mentorship, which is, at the center, we really hone in on how do we help participants, think about their entrepreneurial ventures, get them exposed to what entrepreneurship is, and more importantly, the entrepreneurial mindset. So whether they actually start a business or not, they can still go and apply that mindset in the world of work. So a lot of our volunteers that might come from the corporate background is still relevant, whether students are interested. Not all students are interested in starting a business. Some really want to know about business and entrepreneurship because of their career path choices. And that is absolutely, all of it's fine. And so we just position ourselves for all of it and really look to engage on all those levels. Next slide, please. So one of the things when I first came here, I've been on staff here at the college, as working in the center, also developing a course I'll be teaching next spring on social entrepreneurship. One of the things that I really wanted to do right away was connect with Patty and the Alper Family Foundation to help us bring some structure and some systemic structure to the volunteer engagement we were having. So we have a history here of having great volunteers come, guest speakers. The other day, the co-founder of Rotten Tomatoes was a part of our ecosystem and gave a great a fireside chat on how he started and gave great tips and did a networking event. And so in the past, maybe we have that event and hopefully they come back and do more. I think now what our future is holding and what we're being much more strategic on now that we have this system in place is to, well, how do we, get that engagement and continue that engagement and even measure that engagement? What does that really mean? And what does that mean for the student, for the alumni, for the community member, and for us as a center? And overall, as for the college, when we have these types of engagements, how do we capture that? So it's not just, hey, come to my class or come to this fireside chat and then it goes away, but creating some continuity, some sustainability through it, so that we can continue to offer these and more innovative opportunities. So that investment there, that first one from the Alper Family Foundation, allowed us to create this system. Actually, the college student that I was able to hire to help develop these slides and the structure, to go through Patty's book with me and create, key points and outlines to help oncoming volunteers, is actually sitting next to me now listening in. So his name is Sashir, and we were able to invest in him and it created a whole different professional development line for him as well. So that covers, a couple of those points. He was able to help us, that investment to help us create infrastructure. But also this fall, we got some funding from the Coca-Cola Foundation, Notre Dame, to actually bring together mentors in a deep way with entrepreneurs from our alumni community and our local community. And we actually, now that we had this tool in place with Teach to Work, we're actually created infrastructure. And so we're excited because we're rolling this out over the next month. Actually, 2 weeks is our first orientation, a volunteer orientation. And I'll tell you why in just a couple of slides why that's unique for us. Again, not new to having volunteers come on campus, but new to this infrastructure, which will give us a pathway and a journey for the volunteer as well. And just constantly looking at ways to improve this process. That's what this has done. Our entire team is on board, and we'll continue to grow and get more people on board with this process. Next slide, please. So our approach, to what Patty had mentioned, lots of shared learning, that cross-generational collaboration between the mentor and college student, alumni, and community member. We are able to kind of utilize volunteers on all levels, and volunteers, want to hit all levels. Again, really important for that engagement to happen, especially in this climate. For a number of reasons, for sure. I'll mention that in a couple slides, but very purposeful as well. So like the skills that are learned through these interactions are, some are measurable, some will last a lifetime because the mentorship and the relationship that's being built, I see firsthand how students feeling more confident. This gentleman here holding the sign, his name is Bill Amata. He's on our entrepreneurship board. He's a key member of our ecosystem here, and he constantly is volunteering. He embodies, a lot of this prior to this infrastructure happening. Now that we have this infrastructure, it even makes him more excited to stay involved. But he's a CEO of a great big marketing company here in Los Angeles. He is constantly engaging with our students, and even to the point where students are able to reach out to him and, hey, Bill, can you come and speak on, campus for us? Or Bill, can I come visit your office? Or he'll invite students to a dinner. This is the interaction what we want to help to cultivate, so it's not happening by accident or by circumstance, but that we're actually creating intentional engagement through volunteering, for multiple reasons. Next slide. So real world validation, access to network. This is huge, right? So, how does a student get contact with the CEO of a big marketing company? How can a student be in the same room in close proximity with the co-founder of, Rotten Tomatoes? How can a student be in the same room with an investor with an angel investor or participant, maybe an alumni who sold a business and et cetera? Who's cultivating that for them? Are we waiting for the next event to happen to make that happen, or are we being more intentional? The project-based mentoring that we're applying it to is venture mentoring, but as mentioned, this system could be applied to, of the other 8 colleges on the campus, because everyone is doing mentoring, because mentoring is so prevalent regardless of your field of study, for the college to think about. How do we bring these professionals on campus, do amazing things, and have it be meaningful? So that network access is incredible. I mean, it's just it's unlimited, in terms of what could happen outside of the classroom, et cetera. And having that strategic direction. This is actually huge because with our board with the Entrepreneurship Center, we're creating, we're kind of resetting a little bit, creating a business plan, looking more strategically over the next 3 to 5 years. This is now embedded in our conversation, right? It's so important to keep that at the forefront. Next slide, please. So just pointing out here, something just reemphasizing something here, developing the entrepreneurial mindset. That's something I've been preaching since my Nifty days. I got introduced to that term. That's how long I've been with Nifty. I've been with Nifty since the early 2000s, in some way, form, or capacity, training other educators on entrepreneurship, traveling the country and the world, teaching people about entrepreneurship. It was memorable. And one of the things that stood out all the time was, not only the actual, obviously the hard skills necessary to start a business, how do I adapt these principles? How do I adapt AI to my entrepreneurial venture? but just the mindset, that students had thinking about it. And a really quick story, one of my favorite stories from my Nifty days, and I'll go to the next slide, was I walked into a high school one time and someone saw me with my Nifty shirt, and one of the students, and he was a senior, and I was coming in just to say hello to the teacher and the class. We had been working with the principal. He saw me with my shirt, and he said, "Oh, Nifty, I took you in 9th or 10th grade." He was graduating, and he said, "You know what? If it wasn't for that class, I wouldn't be going to college right now." He didn't say I wouldn't be starting a business. He didn't say I would be, I've discovered this great tech, thing. I'm going to the next step because I got inspired to think entrepreneurially. And guess what? That doesn't stop there. I see it firsthand here in the post-secondary side, where how prevalent that is, right? How do I stand out in the marketplace? Oh, I'm about to finish my degree. I just talked to a young man the other day. He finished his 4-year, went right into his master's, and there's a little nervousness for him going into the real world and finding the job that he wants. And we just brainstorm ways that he can think entrepreneurially, whether he owns his own business, whether he walks into the corporate office, whatever you want to do with it. So, let's continue to be like this conduit of information, of inspiration, of relationship building. So that's what I want to point out here. Next slide, please. I think I only have 2 more slides here, but we talked about there's such a win on all levels. Patty pointed out several of them already. Some are already reemphasized here, but just to reemphasize for us, the current student, which is the undergrad and the grad, the alumni, which some of them come back to be mentors. We actually actively look for alumni who want to be mentors, depending on what they're doing. And local entrepreneurs. This is new for us. We're getting new funding to serve the community. We actually got some funding this past year from Verizon. We got funding from Coca-Cola and Notre Dame to expand our entrepreneurial footprint, from the university into the local community more prevalent. And, mentors and volunteers are going to be important on each level. If we don't have a system to keep that in place, it'll happen, it'll not happen. So we definitely needed a system, which is what we've been developing this year. So I think I got one more slide here. So one thing I want to point out here is obviously when a volunteer comes into our space, virtually or in person, we get human capital. We get to learn from them and their skill set. They might offer that skill set to help our student entrepreneurs. They might offer that skill set to help our center. They might offer that skill set to help the School of Business, or maybe CSUN as a larger community. So depending on how they engage with us, it's absolutely incredible. We also have an entrepreneurship club that is just dynamic. We're able to create that ecosystem and space with them as they have needs for volunteers and community as well. But needless to say, fundraising opportunity, maybe it's the 3rd or 4th notch in there. But there is no doubt that exposing a volunteer to what we do here in the ecosystem, and especially in this climate where we're talking about finding diverse ways to raise funds and bring revenue into the campus, into the work that we're doing in the post-secondary space. We've got to think more entrepreneurially about this, because some of the traditional grant writing procedures from federal, maybe state, may look different. I know it does for us. And so we've already been talking about what can we do different. So volunteer engagement, while to its pure core, will feed and support our students, support the alumni, support the community. In addition, it can also create a boomerang and a wraparound of opportunity for us as a center and a school. One quick note: we had a program. We had a quick summer program, entrepreneurial program we did for high school students, 6 weeks, 7 weeks. We said, let's have a showcase at the end. We got some volunteers to come. There was one volunteer who volunteered with the program, with the center and the college for years, came to the showcase, saw it in action, and decided to fund in a different way because they saw something in action. And so inviting volunteers, having a system where you're able to do that, and there are other stories like that where, if they see in action what you're actually doing, expose them, come out of the classroom, and do something different, it could really mean something long-term and create sustainability. So with that, I'll stop right there.
Great. Well, that's wonderful. So I do at this time want to open it up to our audience to begin submitting some questions for us. I can see already in the chat, we've had a few people start putting their questions there. And we also, in advance of this event, we asked for questions as part of the registration and had quite a few of those as well. So I'm going to turn to a few of those as we begin. So I can tell that you have our audience's interest because already we're getting questions about now, how do we do this? How do we get into implementing this at our institutions? So let's get into the weeds of that a little bit. We have quite a few different people asking us about the recruitment process, and I would really like to hear from all of you on this. You know, Patty, you noted that institutions should think about identifying a specific individual. Kenny, we want to know how you get that CEO of Rotten Tomatoes to come speak at your institution. JD, we want to hear more. What is the process of bringing these partnerships together? So how do you build strategic industry partnerships to enrich workforce development and educate industry partners on education standards? And then how do you recruit those mentors? So why don't we go ahead? I have Patty at the top of my screen. We'll kick off with you and then we'll pass it along.
So first thing, Nicole, I have an article. It's a trio. It's a trilogy article on how to do this, how to colleges court companies. So that will be an attachment at the end of this. I courted many from the Washington, D.C. area to adopt a class for NIFTY. And I would call on companies mostly, or individuals I knew at companies. And just from human to human, I would say, yes, we always like your investment, but what we want is your knowledge. Our students need your knowledge. And I would say, come to class with me and experience it. Come tell the students your story, and then let's sit down with them and hear their business plans and begin to coach. So I would kind of hold their hand through the process, but that was me coming to a classroom that existed. I would turn it over to both JD and Kenny on speaking institutionally.
Well, as Kenny often fostered these relationships personally, I will turn it quickly to him, but I'll just say that the process really starts with a meaningful conversation about what can be offered and what the institution's needs are in a specific way, because there's no one rigid way that these partnerships can come about. You know, very much in the spirit of what we do at higher education institutions, we're very mindful of the specific identity and needs of our institutions and how that plays out in what we do. We respect that in the conversations we have. The other thing I'll also say is that, you know, sometimes we at NIFTY work with a corporate partner that has a specific interest in working with somebody because they have a region of the country that they want to have more of a customer base in, or they have identified a priority as a foundation that corresponds to a certain sector or a geographic area. So sometimes what happens is that we get apprised of great opportunities to bring resources of various kinds to the table, and then we look upon our network and say, okay, who could we start a conversation with? But let me turn it over to Kenny to speak about some specific examples of how it comes together.
Yeah, and JD, I agree with you. No one particular way. But let's name a couple that have worked for us and that I've seen work even in my days at NIFTY. But you know, one thing for sure, if you have the luxury to, our board is an advisory board. They're not a fiduciary board. So the advisory board are just professionals who love the school, and we meet with them quarterly and we tell them what we're doing. And they've signed up for that. And I'm wondering if, depending on what your role is at the school, I know that could really dictate if that happens or not. But I wonder if there's some champions, because that peer-to-peer, CEO getting other CEOs to volunteer is super amazing. That's more than what any of us can do, as staff or faculty on the college campus. So that reliance on, champions who maybe they're alum, maybe they're not alum, but they just love the school and what's happening, in the area. They jump on board and they go, what can we do together? And so that's one way, that I've seen some engagement happen. Another way is that, I mentioned our entrepreneurship club. Students asking professionals, they tend to get less no's or delays. Professionals, if they care in any level about the student community, tend to respond well to our students. So we actually encourage our students, for themselves, if they're looking for an internship, if they're looking to connect, they can use us as leverage. But we've seen tremendous success when students are reaching out to professionals and inviting them on campus or inviting them to a webinar, or inviting them online, even if it's just for something small. We've seen tremendous success in that as well. So that's another way. But overall, people, are hungry for meaningful engagement. And so, I do recognize that if you are a educator only, and like that's your main role, the bandwidth to spend time in recruitment could be challenging. So not dismissing that. If you are a staff person and your job description is one thing, I've had to go outside of my job description because I saw the need. So to help bring funds in for our center, I have no, pressure or like major requirement to raise a certain amount of funds for our center. But I've jumped in that pool because I saw the need to bring these things to our center and our ecosystem, which has been great. So, stepping into that, being okay with that, knowing that it'll create something for the greater good as a staff person. But, it comes in different ways. And last thing I'll say is attending events. The campus is not the only world out there. Like, something that we push and encourage is like, hey, there's a lot of we're in LA. Like, there's a lot of major things happening off campus as well. It's carving out some time to attend that event that we keep pushing off, or going to the local Chamber of Commerce breakfast, or whatever it might be, to tell the story, even if it's like carving out a couple times a month or once a month, where the community gets to engage with you. And doing something a little bit more uncomfortable, all create and generate the opportunity for this to happen. So that's my 2 cents on it.
I'm going to add something here. Just to make you more comfortable in the idea of courting or requesting engagement from a business. In my opening chapter of the book, I did copious interviews with these huge 5 companies. MasterCard alone said this: by sending their staff to do mentoring within the wheelhouse of their employees' knowledge was much better for them, for the employee, than going to Habitat for Humanity and hammering a nail, because it used their whole self. They could pull from their entire work experience. There were countless reasons why companies enjoyed taking on a mentorship role, and I'm just going to rattle off a few. One is it's within their wheelhouse. 2, it's building a pipeline of new employees to potentially come on to into their company. 3, it's a finite number of visits. It could be a semester, or it could be a year, but it could be every 2 weeks. It could be once a month. It's a finite number of visits, and it's working in an area that the employee understands. Many companies view this as management training. It's a way for that employee to act as an ambassador for Comcast and come out into the community and represent Comcast to a school. So it's a gratitude for the employee to the company. It makes them feel proudful. Also, there's a culture shift within the company. When these employees come back to the company, they bring a joyfulness. They're proud and they're excited, and they are looked up to by the people they're mentoring. So it brings a new confidence and a new sense of leadership. Also, human resources will say that the company looks like a do-good company. I mean, it makes the company look good to the employees by offering mentorship. And that creates a sense of loyalty to the company. So I mean, I've written about this extensively, but I want the schools to not be fearful or intimidated to call on companies. They want this too, if you call on the right person within the company. And that's another conversation.
Well, all of you have touched a little bit on the resourcing for these kinds of programs. I think that's a question on a lot of people's minds. How do we get the funding together for this? But also, once we have it resourced financially, how do we resource it appropriately with people? So what kind of staff do we need to have at the institutions for these types of programs? And then once you have all those pieces in place, how do we go about leading those who are outside of our institutions as part of these programs? And JD, I think I'll start with you there if you want to speak a little bit to those pieces.
Yeah, I'll speak primarily to the first two. And again, I know Kenny in particular can add some practical examples of how things came together. Um, from a resource perspective, you can think upon what we have here today as an opportunity to work with us to pull resources together. We are a nonprofit that is supported significantly by philanthropy. Patty also supports this type of work in different ways through her philanthropy and in partnership with NIFTY. But we are looking to ultimately often bring together philanthropic resources that we have through our organization that we can put some effort toward a partnership like this. We're pretty savvy, as I'm sure many of you in your institutions are, at identifying public resources from higher education state accounts or federal workforce accounts that can be utilized from time to time. Also, even municipal workforce development accounts, a variety of things we've seen be utilized over the years. And then we do ask, typically such partnerships do feature some contribution from the institution, but it's managed in a way where, resources are also being brought to the table by various partners who are part of the arrangement. So that's at a high level what the resourcing looks like. From a capacity and staffing perspective, I would encourage you all to look upon NIFTY as a key interlocutor who can go and help create the arrangements that you yourselves might be a little bit hard pressed to do on your own, given your existing responsibilities and your existing imperatives. If you've ever had that desire to do a project like this, but just that extra little bit of capacity and technical assistance has been the thing that's been holding you back, well, that is the sort of job that Kenny used to have in our organization and that we continue to have in our organization to provide that oomph. So that's that on the staffing capacity. But let me pass it to Kenny because, again, he was the architect of many of these things and how they specifically came together.
No, thanks, JD. And we built that together. I mean, and I know it looks different from the nonprofit space to what this looks like resourcing on college campus, right? So, but everything JD just mentioned, but it started with the vision to make this pivot in our nonprofit, to bring along all stakeholders and, in some of this, in this new space where we were going to double down and dive deep into post-secondary strategies to complement all the great work that we had done before. And that took some vision casting. And that, so I will say that definitely took some research from our point, mainly you, JD, on that, like really speaking to the staff and saying, let's go, we're going in this direction, but being sensitive to what that direction meant for the entire organization, for our volunteers who already existed, and for new ones we were trying to engage. So that was so important, like to have that plan in place. While it took a decision, it also took a plan. It took some writing down. We actually looked at other models of, how can this work, et cetera. So that pivot, and I don't know, if, before resourcing, is there a plan stage for you as a educational institution? Is it first some R&D with the current staff, if it's the dean or other faculty that need to come together? Are you doing this alone? Is this, et cetera? So I think putting some things down in terms of like an actual plan could be very helpful, and start now. If you're looking to implement something, some real change or do something, more institutionally, then now would be the time. And then we know it may not implement until fall of 2026, but now would be the time to take those small steps to get people engaged. And that's what we've had to do here at the college as well. So it was like, hey, we have volunteers coming. We need a system in place. We didn't pull the rug and say, here's what you need to do every time someone volunteers, but we methodically learned and also found ways to implement strategy through a plan, which we've been creating and now implementing. So I think that makes everyone go, okay, we can do this. It's not as scary or something that's going to require a major shift or turn from the current staff. And and then once that staff, if there's any capacity changes, I think working within the capacity is the primary. Right? Finding ways to, do these new things within current capacity. Because once you start saying this is going to require, more stretching from you, allowing the staff to see the stretching as professional development, a chance to, maybe replace tasks that, instead of adding on. So that might be helpful in that realm. And the last thing I'll say in terms of that outside leadership, stakeholders coming and engaging. There hasn't been any resistance so far, on this side of things. It's been welcomed. And I think the messaging is still getting out there, what that means for them. But I feel like when you present structure, it gave us confidence as a center, something that, definitely learned watching the Nifty volunteer engagement strategy work, seeing that in person, applying some of those principles and building new things relevant to the college is giving us more confidence having a system, making the ask, because we have a plan and we have a system, where before it was maybe, it was still there, but now it's even more confidence to be able to make the ask, whether it's financially, human capital, et cetera.
Right. Well, based on what you shared, it's hard to believe that anyone would be questioning why we might want to bring a program like this to our institution. But we do have someone asking, how do you build buy-in at an institution around these kinds of programs? And I'd love to hear from both you, Kenny, and Patty on this question, because I know you work very closely with institutions as you're developing some of these programs across different institutions. So tell us about that. How do you get everyone on board when you do run into an institution where everyone's not on board?
So we're talking about two different things. We're talking about potentially adding entrepreneurship education to a college campus. And we're also talking together, and maybe if you already have an entrepreneurship program or others, we're talking about adding teach to work and mentorship to a college campus. So which question are we asking?
I would like to hear about both, buy-in from both. Yeah.
So I'm going to answer about bringing mentorship to college campuses, and I'll let Kenny respond and JD to bringing entrepreneurship education to college campuses. I would say I'm working with schools across the country on building mentor programs, and every school does it a little differently, and where it's housed varies also. When Kenny and I started working together, he's in an entrepreneurship and innovation center. It's a natural tie-in with entrepreneurship. Mentorship just marries beautifully. Other schools, it's kind of come in through career services. Other schools, it's come in through workforce development. I have another private school, nonprofit private, that is come in through the CEO of the school Every place is housed and the vehicle to enter is different and how it's used is different. I think that also some of the staffing to build a mentor program, the main thing I say, it requires one coordinator. It requires one human being that can be probably from the development kind of background, who can call on companies, who can execute and follow through, that can help marry the mentor from companies into a particular school of study, and to have buy-in with that faculty or that dean of that school, of that department. So is a natural alliance with business and entrepreneurship. Though I have seen it talked about within engineering, within communications, all the schools that require projects, project requirements for students to have some creativity to build something on their own. So that's my 2 cents.
Great. And Kenny?
Yeah, from the college campus, it already had established entrepreneurial programming, and it also has, obviously being housed in the School of Business, offering undergrad and grad offerings. But again, the teach to work and the mentorship side was happening in certain areas. The one thing that this relationship with Patty did helped us to expand it to all of our program offerings. So we're maybe not only just 1 or 2 programs. We offer quite a bit of programs through the center alone. So we were able to now kind of weave our way into these other programs and allow for mentorship structure to happen there. So the buy-in wasn't, that part wasn't difficult to speak with the team about per se, because it was like, keep doing what you're doing. We're going to expand, and I'm going to take the responsibility on expanding, creating something. And then we'll also enhance and create something better for what's already in place. So I think, buy-in definitely happens better when it's not like, hey, you're doing a bad job. We're going to make this way better than what you're doing. So it's finding the strengths that already exist and then adding on to those strengths. So to adding entrepreneurship to college, and this is my handoff to Nifty, to JD, but adding entrepreneurship into colleges was a entirely different process, to do that. So working within there might have been colleges who offered, program and support for, like what we call curricula or credit programming. We landed a lot in non-credit opportunities. So we might have worked with, a non-credit department to offer this. It might even be in dual credit. We offered it there too. So dual credit, non-credit options for adults in the community, et cetera. So those were like key ways. And then there were a few who embedded like our entrepreneurial mindset, Nifty's entrepreneurial mindset assessment in their current business class or entrepreneurial class. So we found different ways to engage a college campus when embedding entrepreneurship. But I'll hand it over to JD to kind of continue on that.
I mean, I won't say much more than what's already been said. I think fundamentally the buy-in opportunity comes through the authentic conversation we truly seek to have with potential partners in this work. And that's why, as you hear Kenny and Patty talking about how it plays out, the examples are as diverse as your institutions. And so, the opportunity here is to, work with a partner such as us, to really listen to why you might be interested in either project-based mentoring or project-based mentoring with entrepreneurship, to see how we can really individuate a solution to your needs. Because in the end, it is training, curriculum, assessments, mentors and volunteers, other types of experiential learning opportunities that we can really bring as we need to, given what your institution wants to do. And there are so many examples. So I'll stop there. I know we have more questions.
Well, I appreciate you sharing about how this is different depending on the kind of institution. It does show up differently. It might show up in different departments as a degree program, non-degree program. And so we do have a question that's hitting on that, d- how is this defined? How narrowly is it defined? And can this incorporate more broadly topics like publishing, like corporate work? Is there one right fit for these types of programs on an institution or across many different kinds of institutions? And where do you see sort of that definition or those definitions falling? And JD, why don't you go ahead and kick
Yeah.
us off on that?
Yeah, there may not be endless flexibility, but I think there is more flexibility than one might think. So, to some degree, I mean, if you look upon what resources NIFTY has to offer as in part being defined by a roster of corporate partners that we might work with you to develop a project around, you know, the ordered set would include all the sectors encompassed by the companies that we serve. But then again, to those who might, have a company in mind or may have connections through their institution, but rather would look upon us as providing capacity and technical assistance to bring that together, well, then we can bring that in that way. So it remains flexible in that way. But I would say that what we often have found is that, institutions of higher education are interested in the companies that NIFTY has established relationships with. And that's often a first place they look when they start to determine, what the possibilities are thematically. Patty and Kenny?
The only thing I would add is that I don't know that I went through this clearly, but when Teach to Work comes in, let's say with NIFTY to a school, the system that Kenny kept talking about is that the mentor gets trained. We have developed a very complete training module with NIFTY to prepare the mentor on their role. And then there is a toolkit that is provided that has a host of materials, maybe 15 different materials that helps a school build a mentor program. And the first one, I would say, if anyone wants to write this down, on my website, teachtowork.com, there is a free download of it's called a Mentor Coordinator's Implementation Guide. It's a whole program on how to get started that is a free download, because I believe in mentorship as a part of education. That is why I am doing all of this and sort of putting my money where my mouth is. So there's a host of materials that collaborate with building an entrepreneurship program and building a mentorship program hand in hand.
Well, we also have quite a sizable audience today of international institutions, and we're wondering how you've partnered with international organizations in the past, international institutions in the past, and what opportunities are available for our international institutions.
Well, I'll just briefly say that we do work globally. As a matter of fact, we have partners and partnerships in about 34 countries around the world right now. And so everything that we've been saying today also applies to international institutions. Of course, we know the Commission accredits international institutions. So if you're interested in working with us, all of this has been relevant to you. In addition to the post-secondary team that we have in our organization, such a partnership would likely be bolstered by a global team that we also have that coordinates additional aspect of global partnerships, such as convening partners globally for technical assistance and mutual learning conversations, and involvement in our global business plan competition, which is our highest and most fun showcase event. It'll be at the next month at the United Nations, was at the Stock Exchange in New York last year. So if you're an international institution, have no fear. You can work with all of us on this. Kenny, in your time, did we have any international partners that you developed something with?
Just, we had, because I kind of managed both the post-secondary and alumni. So we had alumni who were in college and remember going to Switzerland and doing a competition out there on social entrepreneurship. It was a social entrepreneurship conference with educators, colleges, and organizations from Europe, and it was amazing. And we were there. Our student had a chance to present, but we had a chance to really network with institutions outside of the States. So that was, one of the experiences that I've had internationally doing that. But yes, there's so much that we can possibly do outside of the States.
JD, maybe you can mention the date. If anybody is in New York that week, maybe they could attend.
Well, that's true. The geography of your commission works. The date of the global competition is 6 p.m. on Thursday, November 20th at the United Nations in New York. If anyone would like to attend, it's free and open to the public, and you can find info on our website or contact us through the follow-up from this webinar. We'd be happy to give you more information. Thank you, Patty.
No. And I certainly think there's going to be follow-up after this webinar because I'm seeing other questions that suggest they'd like to follow up with all of you after the webinar. Now, this particular question, and this might need to be our last one, but it's asking to NIFTY specifically, but Patty, knowing your work, I feel like related to the project-based mentorship that you would want to share a little bit about your connections as well. But they're wondering if you've worked with or would consider working with youth GED programs. They mentioned the name of their institution as well. We can certainly share that with you later, but is that something that fits into your work, and how could that potentially fit into your work? So it's directed at NIFTY. I'll start with you, JD, but I'd also like to hear from you, Patty, about your work.
Yes, we could definitely work with a youth GED program, and I'm trying to rack my brain to remember if we've worked with one specifically before. But what I can tell you is that in addition to post-secondary institutions, we work with WIOA youth-funded entities of various kinds, city and employment and workforce development agencies. So if you're an institutional partner that is not necessarily a traditional 2 or 4 year college or university, or that you have a specific line into GED work, we can work with you.
Great.
I would have to defer to JD on that. Mine program is going to come through NIFTY for any GED, and it's very project-based. I don't know if GED, as I'm not an educator, I don't know if GED is typically project-based.
And maybe there's some opportunity there for you to grow in that area.
There we go.
Good. Yeah. Already building good connections here at Middle States.
Thank you.
Yeah. Well, great. Well, I appreciate all that you have had to share today. Certainly, there's other questions that we weren't able to get to, but we will certainly share those with you, and appreciate everyone for putting those questions forward. We can go ahead and move to the next slide. We know that some of the things that we're talking about here today, project-based learning, entrepreneurial studies, workforce development, these are not new things. These are all an extension of student success. And here at our commission, our standards already accommodate innovative learning models such as micro-credentials, apprenticeships, credit for prior learning. And Workforce Pell will continue to expand opportunities for students, and institutions in our commissions are well positioned to lead in this area. I know all of you want to hear more from our team here today. Patty, Kenny, JD, thank you so much for participating in this. And if you want to connect with some of these individuals again, Patty and JD are going to be joining us at our annual conference and presenting a concurrent session on these topics. So if you feel like this was just a taste and you're ready for more related to this work, please do make sure that you join us at our annual conference and that you prioritize attending their session. It should be a really great great, engaging, informative session for you to participate in. So I also want to note that we have an upcoming event related to our review of standards and evidence expectations on November 5th. So please do make sure that you're registering and joining for that event. Thank you all for joining with us today. We can go ahead and go to the last slide. We're grateful for your time with us today, and we look forward to seeing all of you at future events. Thank you.